like you, as far as modern education is concerned, in a certain sort of professional field, you already become expert. Now, for ancient Indian knowledge is concerned, you should take reincarnation of a younger student. pay more sort of effort to read some of these ancient, the material regarding, emotions or minds and a certain technique or these things. So I, in spite 81-year-old, one part of my life I carry like student. Always study, and thinking, analyze. So those older people should take younger reincarnations already. Right? Should take some kind of young-aged sort of reincarnation, then pay more attention, study. Or, I think 13th century, one great Tibetan scholar, he advised to his follower, a person who even going to die next day, still worthwhile study this day. So of course, we also usually have some other reasons. You see the life after life. So therefore, even last day of this life, still try to study. It's because of the imprint carry next life, like that. So even those people who have no sort of concept about next life, okay, even you see they quite near your death, still reading something, thinking something, then you could be less worry, less anxiety. Otherwise, just you see, like waiting death. Oh, then more worry, more anxiety. Thinking, reading something is much useful, isn't it? Like that. So please, one famous, the University of Murray, University is here. I would like to suggesting or appealing as a young Indian, please think these points more seriously. And along your study, your sort of learning, sort of knowledge, these points also you see should combine. I always consider the ethics array. Ethics, not something mysterious way, something. No. Ethic means naturally, including animal, insect, every sentient being want happiness, joyfulness. So any action, any idea, any emotion which brings happiness, joyfulness, that's ethic. So any sort of ideas or sort of concept or knowledge which brings more trouble, that's because unethical way, unethical, like that. So that's the demarcation. We want happiness, joyfulness. So any sort of mental action, verbal action, physical action, which brings genuine, long-lasting happiness, that's the ethical. Like that. So when we talk according to secular sort of viewpoint, then you see this sort of ethics, nothing to do with religious belief, like that. Okay. So now some questions. Oh.
Direct question to you, sir, and still at the age of 73.
Karsa.
I'm a student, as you said, you should continue learning, and I am still in the process of learning. Oh. And my question to you, sir. You talked of many things, happiness, internal happiness, blah, blah, blah.
Yes, sir.
First question to you, sir, what is the secret of your health? Because at the age of 81, you look with a smiling face and you look so young. What is the secret of your success? What is the secret of your health?
Secret.
Secret of your health.
Oh,
Second question, what is the main message you would like to give to our young students so that they may also inspire and get the inner beauty, whether he or she.
Kasa.
Thank you.
I think the first part, Kasa, what is secret?
Secret of health. Good.
I should keep secrecy. As briefly I mentioned, I think comparatively, you see, in spite difficult life, at age 16, I lost my freedom. Age 24, I lost my own country. A lot of problem. At age 16, I took the responsibility, temporary responsibility. A lot of difficulties. But however, you see, in these years, I think, truly I think grateful to Nalanda masters sort of was. They have brilliant explanation about our life, about reality. And that also, you see, use extensively logical approach. That is something, so I think the major differences. I think about 3 years ago, I met some of the professors of Buddhist University in Bangkok. You see, we met and we discussed some common sort of things like Four Noble Truth or these things, or 37 practice. These are common. So then I asked, when you study these points, mainly relying on because of scriptures, or use some reasons that they say relying on scriptures. Then in Nalanda tradition, Sanskrit tradition, like the Dharmakirtis, say Parmanda Vattika Karika, the second chapter explaining about Four Noble Truths, these things. Each point use reasons. So that's some of the differences. The way of also the approach or analyze thing, not relying on quotation. As far as the quotation is concerned, some Nalanda masters actually rejected some Buddha's own word. Because the Buddha himself, you see, give us some kind of freedom. He mentioned, "Oh, my follower, bhikshus and scholars should not accept my teaching out of faith, out of devotion, but rather thorough investigation and experiment." So some of the Nalanda masters, you see, rejected some Buddha's own teaching like that. So therefore, I think the training, you see, these way, use reasons and experiment. That also, I think, keep fresh your sharp mind. That also some, I think, because of effect. See, I think number of scholars who spent 20, 30 years rigorous study, in spite their old age, their mind very sharp. I think training really makes differences. Not only simply training, but with open-minded and further investigate. So that's, I think, some my secret. Then another, I think, secret is warm-heartedness. That also, not relying on quotation, but use, as I mentioned earlier, reasons and scientific findings and common experiences. Then you develop a firm conviction. The warm-heartedness is really immense beneficial to oneself and the other. So these things, and as a result, I think each night, 8 to 9 hours sound sleep. That also another secrecy, my secret. So this is first part, right? Second part, correct? Second part, yes. As I mentioned earlier, I think we already drafting curriculum about secular ethics, which can be fit in a secular education field. So we already start working that, and mainly with help of Emory University in America. We already some draft read. So further we are discussing. So I think eventually, I think within this year or next year, there is some drafting. First, some draft or curriculum will be available. Then I think the further professors, I think, should look and some research, some discuss, and then feel okay. Then I think as an experiment, as a pilot project, this is some class, let them study these things and watch what effect, what result after 2, 3, 4 years. If something quite sort of significant sort of what's the effect, then we can expand or more classes like that. So your question.
To live in joint families. And India has always been unique in its own culture. And over the past recent times, unfortunately, the joint family system is sort of breaking down into nuclear families. What is your opinion on this, and what would your recommendation be to us?
I think you should have a better answer. For me, monk, celibate, no family. So sometimes in the West, some sort of celibate monk, and I usually telling them, look, people who have family, sometimes are very happy, joyful, sometimes quarrel. Then worst thing, divorce with children. Difficult, very difficult. So those family, people who have family, you see, too much ups and downs. Then monk may not be over joyful, but very straighty. Straighty, barbe. Ka. Stable. Kudu do things.
Stable, steady.
Steady, like that. So then obviously, I think they sometimes in some country, I think they each family member working. So then eventually, old parent sometimes is put in certain sort of home, old home. So I think, of course, if there is no other way, then okay. But otherwise, I think Indian tradition, quite a big family, grandparent, parent, and children live together. I think mentally, those particularly older people, I think much happier, I feel. Yes? Oh. Merum.
Your Holiness,
Oh.
Your Holiness, Namaskar. My question is...
Do you have two or three merufams? No? Then one merufam keep here, one merufam is it there? Maybe 1, 2, 3, like that. Yes.
Thank you. So my question, Your Holiness, is like in the modern life, a student has to have a scientific attitude. How should a student in this life, towards life, learning life, have a spiritual attitude? What is the spiritual attitude you would recommend?
Kasa. I think the spirituality which I mentioned, secular way, is very scientific. Number of top scientists, now they really, they feel that kind of spirituality is very necessary. This is scientific. Not talking about God or goddesses or hell. Not talking. How to create healthy body, healthy family, like that. So then also, now there's especially brain scientists. You see, they know when our brain more calm, the ability to investigate is much stronger. When your mind disturbed, then the ability to thinking, to investigate, also you see, disturbed, like that. So therefore, now the brain scientists, particularly brain specialists, now they appreciate, you see, any method to bring calm mind, they consider something very necessary, relevant. If we talk health, or I have, you see, one friend in many, I think in early 70s, one Indian, you see, who attended Tibetan library at Dharamsala, some class, it was a Buddhist class there. So one Indian, later you see, he came to see me, and he told me he participated some classes, or talking about altruism, infinite altruism, and patience. He really felt very, very useful. Then one occasion, in his class, you see, discussed or taught by hell. Then he told me, hell, some hell, too much heat, some hell, too much coldness. So he fed up, and then he didn't sort of participate in the class. He told me like that. So therefore, you know, when we talk, if may I say so, sometimes our sort of spiritual tradition, sometimes you see use fear. I think that's the wrong way. We should, say, give enthusiasm, courage, and happily you see, pursue. Of course, I'm Buddhist, so maybe a little biased, right, or prejudiced. I think Buddha's teaching Four Noble Truths. He mentioned suffering and the causes of suffering. He mentioned these things because the fourth third noble truth is cessation of all suffering. Then the method to achieve that fourth noble truth. So, I think to Buddhists, without talking about cessation about the third noble truth of Nirodha, cessation. Without talking that, just to tell suffering, I think more frustration. Telling, make clear the possibility to achieve permanent sort of cessation of suffering through cessation of causes of suffering. Then enthusiasm develop. Clear. So this is not a way to manipulate fear, but rather courage, enthusiasm. One. Yes, here. Oh, yes. Then I think first this one with microphone. Yes, you speak. Oh no. You speak.
Sir, how important do you think is the way you speak, the words which you choose, the atmosphere you try and create before you speak to someone, and your own attitude? Because this is speech which creates all relationships between two people or between a lot of people.
Karsa. I think practice of love is common. Islam, Allah, infinite love, God, infinite love. So I think those who say a common thing really brings closer understanding. In the philosophical fields, there is differences. So then, I often use it telling, make clear different philosophical views, but make clear all these different philosophical views, same purpose, to strengthening or love, practice of love, or to increase conviction about the value of compassion or love. So then no problem. So the word, yes, sometimes suppose the word, human language is supposed to help to understanding the reality. Language is something unique about a human being, no other animal. But sometimes you see the word, language also creates more confusion. It is true. Even you see, the same Tibetan language is in different interpretation according to different scholars. Sometimes you see confused.
Sir, here, sir. My question is simple, sir.
Where?
Sir, here,
Kodo. Kodo, where? Oh, here.
Yeah, here. From our logical brain, we get a decision, and our feeling, we get a decision number 2. So, in generally, we have a conflict of interest between our thought process and our feeling. So, we develop stress over this both decisions. So, how do you handle this kind of situation?
가사 남주 타네. You see, I think the feeling is much related with sensorial level. That is common with other animals, birds, fish. So we human beings, this special brain there. So sometimes decision out of your feeling may not be long-term useful or correct. So your feeling, important, but must combine with human intelligence, analyze long-term sort of interest or long-term sort of benefit. So as we have unique brain, have the ability to look more holistic, long-term, so that we must use, more important, isn't it? Just according to see immediate sort of feeling, that animal also do that. Okay. Yes?
Sir, may I request some students upstairs in the balcony? Yes, some students.
Sir, I'm
Yes,
in
we have a
upstairs. Then, good afternoon,
Yeah.
everyone. I'm from Taiwan. Then I'm the IT student as well. Yeah. So it's very nice to see you in India, because as you know, we do have so many history reasons. So you are familiar to me. So for me, I have two questions. The first question is, you have been traveling in India for a long time. So for you, what is the definition of home, and where is your home? Then my second question is, 2 months ago, I had been to Srinagar, Kashmir. Then as we know, we remember some issue happened in India just a couple weeks ago. So if we take experience between Tibet and China, so for you, what kind of suggestion you will give for India and Kashmir? Thank you very much.
뭐 가사 당구 가사. Yes, this physical level, this physical born in Tibet. So, from that level, yes, Tibet is my home. And within Tibet, place where I born, that's my home. The rest Tibet. So these relative. Then, now 81-year-old person, over 57 years now I spent in this country. So from that viewpoint, India is my home. Then furthermore, world is my home. There is Tibetan saying,
wherever you are happy, that's your home.
Pama.
Whoever is kind to you is your parent.
Like that. Oh. So then, India is concerned, as I mentioned earlier, our sort of the original teacher, mainly Shantarakshita, 8th century. Almost at that time, topmost philosopher, logician of Nalanda institution, Shantarakshita. He invited by Tibetan emperor, 8th century, he introduced Buddhism in Tibet. Naturally, according to his own sort of institutions, sort of was the way, Nalanda. So today, I think, among the Buddhist countries, I think the Tibetan, I think, kept original sort of was the tradition of Nalanda, combined sort of Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist sort of monk's role, and then one particular thing is Buddhist logic. Dignaga, great logician, Nalanda master, and Dharmakirti, and then Shantarakshita, his disciple, Kamalashila. These are great logicians. They are writing. You see, we use their writing as a textbook study. rigorously. So therefore, you see, we have some very close connection with Nalanda tradition. So in any way, now I think my first visit to Europe, 1973. So at that time, BBC correspondent Maktali, you see, he asked me, why you have interest visit European countries? And I answered, I consider myself as a citizen of the world. So I want to see more places. So now today, even more, I'm talking about a 7 billion human being. I'm not sort of making distinction east or west or north or south, or this color or that color. Same human being. Mentally, emotionally, physically, same. Sometimes I jokingly telling the best proof the sameness of different people, they can marry and produce nice children. So that means we are same. So like that. Then third, this is the second part. Huh? Oh, now China, relation between Chinese or Han people and Tibetan, I think nearly 2,000 years sort of history. So many Tibetan kings marry with Chinese princes. Very close relations, sometimes fighting. So 1954, September, I went to Peking to participate the Chinese, the Congress, or the National People's Congress. Then, 55 summer, I returned from Peking to Lhasa. On the way, in Xingen, the ancient capital of China, we spent a few days there. One day, sightseeing, no official program, just sightseeing. On the wall, ancient wall of Xingen, the capital, we just sat on the wall. One high Chinese official accompanied with me. He mentioned, ancient time, Tibetan army reached up to here. The Chinese emperor in the capital have to flee because of threat of Tibetan the army. So he told me like that. So then I think recently, last year or 2 years ago, one American, I think Columbia University, this is some historian. They carry some research work about history of that part of the world. So then, mainly based on ancient Chinese history book, like Tang Shu, so then they found 7th century, 8th century, 9th century, you see, at that time, 3 emperors. Chinese emperor, Chinese empire, and Mongolian empire, a Tibetan empire. The Chinese empire, more serious concern about political matter. The Mongolian, more military. The Tibetan empire, more religious. And anyway, you see, I think between India and Tibet, I think a few occasions some fight. Otherwise, not much.
Sir, we have a gentleman over there. He's standing.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
So you see, we fully committed, not seeking separation or independence. Now time changed. Past is past. Now look, European Union, the spirit of European Union, the independent sovereign state, now for common interest, live together. So eventually, I think whole world, you see, should follow the European spirit. I think, like modern India, you see, I think a few thousand rajas, isn't it, in this country. Then independence, you see, all live together. South Indian, North Indian, West Indian, East Indian, different script, different language. Some Tamil Nadu, there's some people criticize Hindi. So they consider Tamil language is much advanced. Doesn't matter. You see, live together as the Indian Union. Wonderful, wonderful. So therefore, you see, we also, you see, thinking, is it Tibet and Xinjiang or this, whether you see part of China or not, we can live happily together. So we fully committed, remain within the People's Republic of China for mutual benefit. To us, the plenty of money, yuan, we can use and construct Tibet. And then the Tibetan rich Nalanda spirituality serve now today in China, Buddhist population, over 400 millions. So many of these Buddhists really showing eagerness to learn from our knowledge. So we can help them. So like that.
Yes.
So another level of happy marriage. Okay.
Sir, we have a question there.
Please accept my regards to you, sir. I have two questions.
No?
I am a student of international relations, so...
Sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt. Please restrict yourself to one question as we want to give chance to others too.
Okay.
Thank you.
As you said, Buddhism was found in India. Tibetan Buddhism is one of the oldest Buddhism, which is Tibet has able to carry it forward. We also shared the Silk Route. We also had the old Mitra connections.
Karsa.
We also had various Tibetan settlements still in India, Chakrata, West Bengal, Gumpa, Dehradun. We have many other settlements. The acceleration is losing somewhere. What do you have to say about that, one? And second, how important is nation?
Karsa. Yeah. I think generally, I think when we become refugee, our top priority is preservation of Tibetan culture, including Tibetan language. So therefore, you see, we asked Pandit Nehru, firstly, we want Tibetan sort of settlement, like colony. So much easier to preserve our language like that. And then also, you see, we asked Indian government, separate Tibetan school, again for study Tibetan language like that. In 6 days, you see, for both with Tibetan and also the government of India, it's much easier to send, you see, Tibetan children, go with different Indian sort of schools. That very easy. But you see, we, I say the ours in the government, we want separate Tibetan school. So these mainly is for preservation of our language, our culture, like that. So meantime, wherever Tibetan settlement there, the local people always is very much praising the Tibetan settlers. Occasionally some problems you see happen, but basically, you see, we have very close relations. So, so then we also now, you see, encouraging more Indian Buddhists, you see, join some of our monastic institutions for study. Now already, I think about 20, 30 Indians already join some of our monastic institutions. They learn Tibetan, they carry, you see, the usual hours, they study mainly through debate, like that. So eventually these Nalanda type like a thunder, like thunder. If there are some people who feel sleep, then I think it good. So like that. So therefore, eventually, I think these monastic institutions eventually can be authentic institution for study Nalanda knowledge or Nalanda sort of tradition. So already, I think Indian, including Ladakhis, I think almost 5,000 monks from Ladakh and the Himalayan range. These are Indian. So then local Indians from South Indians also now joining, like that. So this, our knowledge is something come from India. So Indian should study more.
Your Holiness, my wife and I are privileged and lucky to have visited both your monastery at Dharamshala as well as the Patola Palace in Lhasa. And my question to you, do you see any reconciliation whatsoever between Dharamshala and Lhasa in your lifetime?
Kasa. Yes, I think People's Republic of China, today's China, compare 30, 40, 50 years ago, much changed. Then more important, now among the Chinese, number of students and also tourists, you see, who have better knowledge about reality. As a result, they study foreign countries, America or Canada, some European countries, and also Japan, Australia, like that. Then, with help of modern sort of technology, you see, the information, kasa, technology. Modern technology, you see, in spite heavy censorship, some information you see reach there. So like that. So therefore, I think I always make sort of one example. About 4 years ago, you see, we noticed 1,000 articles, about 1,000 articles in Chinese language wrote by Chinese. Many overseas Chinese also, you see, wrote, and some few hundred Chinese from mainland China also. And about 1,000 articles, they all fully support about our way of approach, middle way of approach, and very critical their own government policy, like that. So, you see, because of these sort of also new circumstances, more and more Chinese very, very sympathetic to us. Plus, number of Chinese Buddhists really showing. So, among the top leaders, also now, this is showing. Now, for example, the Xi Jinping, when he visited Europe and India, in both areas, you see, he mentioned the Buddhism is important role in Chinese culture. He publicly mentioned. So things are changing. So therefore, I think, a matter of time, I think things will change. That's my feeling about that.
Thank you. I understand everyone is curious. We have the last question. Thank you.
Then perhaps the last two questions. One this, one lady.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Then no more. Yes.
Hello, sir. My name is Alok Agrawal. I got a very short question. What should I change in my life to get and give peace and happiness to all?
Karsa. That's you should know better. If you say too much disturbances out of anger or jealousy, then think more. What really useful, these destructive emotion. And then also you see, you have the experience of loving kindness. So then you see, pay more attention about these positive emotion, constructive emotion, and then once we realize the destructive emotion is really very bad, very destructive, once you simply realize that, your attitude towards anger is something different. You remain, although anger develops, you still become slave of that anger, but still you have some kind of reluctant. Usually, you see, we simply carry our life, or anger is part of our life. Or sometimes anger is useful in order to react more forcefully. So these, you see, they're important to analyze.
Your Holiness, my question is, can compassion be taught or can it only be felt, especially for adults? How do you teach someone to be compassionate?
For me, one best book about kindness or loving kindness, these things, and patience, is the Shantadeva's book. One great master of Nalendra, I think around 8th century, Shantadeva. The
Bodhicharya Avatara, Bodhisattvacharya Avatara.
Oh, the origin Sanskrit also available, and then English translation also there. So this book, for me, 1967, I received oral transmission, that book from one Kunu Lama, one Kinori
master.
Great scholar, a non-sectarian, wonderful. So I received oral transmission from him. That really transformed my life. Really wonderful. Then consists 10 chapters. The first chapter mentioned about greatness of altruism, infinite altruism. Then the second chapter, third chapter, some ritual. Then a fourth chapter, fifth, and sixth is especially teaching or explanation, practice of tolerance, forgiveness, these things. Then seventh chapter, eighth chapter, you see, this detailed explanation, let's say, how much of the valuable altruism or the negative how much is the harmfulness about self-centered attitude, selfish. So that wonderful chapter. Then 9th chapter, philosophy, very complicated. Unless you study more books and combine, just the 9th chapter will not give you clear sort of concept, clear understanding. So for myself, for example, I think over 60 years, I think, and contemplate these concept of shunyata, patita samubandha. I think a better word, patita samubandha. This is over 60 years. Then gradually, deeper understanding, decade by decade, like that. So now, last I think 2 decades, is my understanding and feeling, not only intellectual level, but real feeling, really very strong. So that really affect, my emotions. So 2 ways. One, method side, practice of altruism. One, wisdom side or pranja side, one ubaya side, one pranja side understanding about shunyata. So even one American sort of scientist, he deal with patients, you see, who some disturb their mind. I think several decades. He, I think more than 10 years ago, I met him. Then recently, I deliberately went to his home. Then his age now 98-year-old. So he told me, he's not religious-minded people. There's no question about Buddhism. Through his many decades of experience, he told me, when we develop anger, the object which we feel angry appears very negative. That actually, in reality, 90% of that negativeness is mental projection. So this is exactly 2,000 years ago. The Nalanda master, Nagarjuna, clearly mentioned that. So remedy about that exaggeration is understanding about gap, appearances, and reality. Appearance, truth. Appearances seems to something objectively exist, something independent. The reality, not that way. Everything, the relative, like that. So these, in order to tackle our emotions, like that. So not easy. You need a lot of effort. And the basis of this effort, knowledge, is very important. Is very important. Just as the Buddham Shanam, as a Buddhist, Buddham Shanam Gajami, Dhammam Shanam Gajami, Sangham Shanam Gajami, even 100,000 times recite. Not much effect. Study.
Thank you so much, His Holiness.
Sir, now sorry, no time.
Yes,
Now time to go.
Yes.
Thank
you so much, His Holiness, for answering all our questions and for such lovely thoughts. I understand many people have questions, but we have exhausted the time limit. May I now request Professor Shashi Mathur, Dean Alumni Affairs and International Programs, to propose the vote of thanks. Before that, may I request everyone to be seated. Thank you.
His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Professor Tyagarajan, Director IIT Delhi, Dr. Deepak Dogra, the President of the IIT Delhi Alumni Association. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I feel honored and privileged to have got this opportunity of proposing a vote of thanks today at this historic event. April 9th, 2016 is going to be a memorable day in the history of IIT when His Holiness graced the